Hey everyone, it's Lindsay Baker here with you today once again on Tuesday night for the Action Hour. And tonight I have an incredible story that you are not going to believe when you hear this. Actually, Jane did have these two individuals on. I want to keep them a secret for a second to talk about this a couple weeks ago, but still, I don't think the most people know about this. So there is endangered elk being left to die in the Reyes National Park, and the government is calling it park management. My two guests today, my very special guests that I have here today are Skyler Thomas and Jack Gescheidt. I'm sorry.
I told you, it's Gescheidt.
Gescheidt. Okay, here we go. And Jack, you are the founder of the TreeSp Project. Correct. And you're also a conservationist, environmental conservationist and photographer. And Skyler, you are a filmmaker, and your noted film is Shame at Point Reyes. Is that correct? Skyler?
Uh-oh.
Skyler, are you with me? Well, I just want to make sure I got your movie right.
No, this is fine. I can speak for Skyler. We'll just have him move his lips and I'll fill it in.
He'll come back. I think he may have to go. Skyler, try going off and coming back on. You're frozen. Darn. Let's show it. Let's just show folks what's going on. We want people to get right into this. So let's just show the teaser here.
When you come across something like this, it's tempting for people to go to a safe place. Dismiss this as a wild animal, a non-human, rather than to put yourself in that animal's shoes and imagine what it went through. Matthew saw an elk nearly get stuck and barely escape. Obviously, these animals weren't so lucky. So what were those last hours like? Were predators moving in on them? Were flies already starting to gather on them before they'd even lost their last breaths? And what were they doing in a predicament like that in the first place? The park's wildlife ecologist on the radio just said dismissively that the rest of us need to understand that these are animals that adapted with the land and know how to deal with the landscape. They know how to find water and survive. Does that include this? 2 elk died in one pond. And it's not like this was a baby. It's not like this was an inexperienced animal. This is a sign of desperation. Animals trying to get water in an area that was a potential death trap.
Wow. Let's bring Skyler back in here again. Skyler, when I watched that earlier today, it just hit me right here, just punched me in the chest to see what's going on. Oh my gosh. And the way you described the torture that the animal must have gone through. I mean, any person with any amount of compassion has to realize this is wrong. Please, guys, fill us in on what exactly is going on. Jack, do you want to start, or Tyler? Which of you would like to start?
Let's start with Skyler, since he just got footage. Yes, he's Blue Skyler is how I remember him.
Blue Skyler, got it. Go ahead,
yes.
Skyler.
So everything that you'll see today is recent footage. I've been documenting out there since late 2018. So I have terabytes of pretty upsetting stuff. It's sad that there is an unlimited supply of things you don't want to see inside of a national seashore, especially one as special as Point Reyes, with biodiversity that you just don't find other places. Many wildlife enthusiasts say this could be the Yellowstone of California's coast if it was allowed to be the Yellowstone of California's coast. And sadly, what's stopping it from being that grand is the Park Service itself, if you can wrap your head around that.
What exactly is going on? Why would the Park Service why would the Park Service allow the animals that they are there to protect, the wildlife, the conservation, the job of conservation that they've been given to provide for us, why would they allow them to die of thirst?
There's only one reason. There's a million reasons not to manage the park that way, and there's only one reason, and that reason is responsible for everything bad that's happening out there, and that is bowing to the power of the dairy industry that has, over the last 50 years, taken control of politics in that town. And it is to protect the commercial operations of ranching in a national seashore, no matter how devastating the effects have been proven to be.
So at any cost, the dairy farms come first because huge corporations have ways to pay. I mean, how do they get away with this? How does this happen? How are there not stopgaps in place to prevent this sort of thing happening? Anybody want to address that?
Well, there are all sorts of protections in place in short, it comes down to money, to answer your question straight off. I mean, for Skyler, as you said, it's cows and cattle, and we use those terms interchangeably. There's ranches and dairies. So ranches are to raise steer for meat, for consumption, which they lovingly call beef. And then, of course, they're dairy cows, which is separate related operations, and that's for the milk, obviously. We sort of lump them together and say cows or ranches and kind of use those terms sloppily. But in both cases, it's for-profit, private animal operations inside a national seashore, which is unique in its way to Point Reyes National Seashore, which is near the San Francisco Bay Area. Near San Francisco, it's in the Bay Area. It's about 71,000 acres, and about a third of it, 26,000 acres, is given over to the, as I'll call it now, the cattle industry. And it originally started that way because it was cattle land, which was then made into a park. And the original agreement was after 25 years, or when ranching families aged out or deceased, then it would convert to national park land. So it was never the original intent of the founding legislation that ranching industry stays in the park in perpetuity. But as Skyler was saying, it's a very powerful industry, very powerful lobby, even though it's relatively small in the park compared to the size of ranching overall in the US. And they have exerted considerable influence, which of course means money in our political system, to stay and keep getting 5 and 10-year lease extensions. And now they're poised to get a 20-year lease extension. And many politicians, unfortunately, especially the higher up you go, the more they tend to support this. And it's a direct violation. And that's where we activists come in, to make noise, to shine a light, and get popular support, hopefully from all of you watching too, because it's a national issue, not just for animal rights activists, certainly which it is, but even just for the bigger picture, which is the climate crisis caused in large part by cattle operations, by raising cows in huge numbers, millions of them, for human consumption. That's a giant source of greenhouse gases, and it has to stop, and certainly inside a national park.
Yeah, I want to show, to support what you're saying there, and I want you to go on, I want to show your graphic here that you created, and maybe you can explain this infographic and what is actually happening along the coast.
Yeah, so this was, so the black and white portion is the Point Reyes National Seashore. Skyler, do you know the length in miles of that seashore? I know it's the largest protected coastland because it's a national seashore in all of California. And I don't know the length of it in miles. Do you remember?
No.
Okay, and there are about 5,600 cows, as it says. And I just made this graphic in Photoshop by taking an existing poster that was celebrating Point Reyes National Seashore, which I've changed very simply into a more apt word when talking about the, as you see there in the middle of the picture, 10,000 gallons per year of cow feces and urine.
Oh my gosh. Dumped
on the land. And Skyler has incredible film footage of just the devastation of what this much, way too much cow manure does to the land. And then it goes into the streams, as depicted even in this little graphic. Just look for the brown. And then it goes into bays and the Pacific Ocean. So it's not just the land, but it's everything around there is being polluted by this stuff. And it's really fascinating. I've just had a privilege of speaking with a congressional representative with a small group of us activists about this very issue. And for every drop-dead claim Skyler and I have just made and will continue to make in this call, and thank you for the forum to do so. It's fascinating to watch a seasoned politician just sort of pick away at each of the claims and just try to introduce enough doubt, the way our current president does, let's say, at some issue. If you just
go into detail about that a little bit more? Can you go into detail about that a little bit more? Like, could you give us an example?
Of which?
Of how the issue and then how they skirted around it.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I tend to do the general, and rather than getting mired in the specific, but we do have some time here. So, for instance, I was just on with an environmental Congressman Jared Huffman, who's in the 2nd District of California, very smart guy, considered an environmentalist, and we agree on most issues. But on this one, he's on, I would call it the wrong side of history. So I said, but I'm just trying to nail him down on a fact and just say, but Congressman, do you agree that these are large-scale dairy operations? That we were on an activist demonstration in the park 2 weeks ago with over about 830 animals, 830 cows on that farm, which technically, depending on your definition, either 800 or 1,000 is a CAFO, concentrated animal feeding operation. So I just wanted to acknowledge that this fact, which I'm going to say now. Point Reyes National Seashore is the only national park in all of America that has a dairy operation of that size operating fully inside it. Cattle can graze in, I think, about 14 other national parks, but this is the only one where the entire operation is contained in the park, and it's massively polluting in a lot of ways. So what would he say to that? Oh my God, I got a congressman. God bless him for actually agreeing to, talk with us at all on a Zoom call. And he said, well, Jack, and I don't remember the exact words, but the point was he's saying, that's really not accurate to call it a large-scale operation, because he's then pointing to places in Bakersfield where there might be 2,000 or 5,000 animals. And that really is blah, blah, blah. And that's much worse. And it's a very skillful pivot to say, yeah, but this is really much worse, rather than addressing what I just said, which is, this is going inside a national park. It's insane. It shouldn't be happening there.
That's the key point.
But he just moves skillfully over, and he would just chip away at things like that, just to introduce a little bit of doubt and say, well, it's not really large scale.
Skyler, did you want to add anything?
With these people, you have to be careful not to use terms like large or this or that or the other thing. They will always backpedal and they'll always find an excuse. The bottom line is that what you see out there is horrific. And the visual evidence is overwhelming, but we don't only have visual evidence. We have scientific evidence that was commissioned by the Park Service. So when you say, how can this be possible? Well, they just ignore their own evidence. They ignore their own best practices that are suggested by these studies. And
the studies are available to the public?
They're published on their website, but I've made it easy to get to by also including them on my website.
Great.
Any documentation.
We'll put a link up to that. Do you want to say what your website is right now? And we'll put a link up to that.
shameofpointreyes.org.
shameofpointreyes.org. And I'm going to put that right in the comments in a moment.
And if I may do a brief plug for Skyler right there, that is because his amazing documentary film, feature length, is free on YouTube.
Wow.
And it's called The Shame of Point Reyes. You can Google that. Not Google it. You can put it into YouTube and search for it and see it for free. And it's just an amazing work. I'm new to this issue, relatively so, about 1.5 years. And why? Because I saw The Shame of Point Reyes and was so upset by it with this guy in the room, and it brought me to tears. Meaning the issue is so clear, and his passion for the issue really infected me.
He had me in the first 3 minutes or 2 minutes of it that I watched in the teasers. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think it's an important film for everyone to see. So please go to YouTube, Shame of Point Reyes on YouTube. Just Google it or go to shameofpointreyes.org. Is there a link there, Skyler?
Yeah, you can easily find the film.
And Reyes, by the way, it's Americanized or anglicized. It's Reyes, like R-A-Y-S, but actually in Spanish it's Reyes, R-E-Y-E-S. So for people not in the Bay Area, it's like, what is that word? Reyes, R-E-Y-E-S, The Shame of Point Reyes. Yeah,
we're going to be putting them in here in a second. But I do want to show a video, Skyler, that you did showing the dairy of the year, 2010, I think it was. We'll let them remain nameless, but we do want to see their lovely dairy so everyone can see why they won the award, Dairy of the Year. Wow. That was just amazing. You guys have sound?
Yeah. I would like to think that when people watch that, they would not believe that was inside a national seashore. That looks like Central Valley, Fresno, just places that we've already destroyed beyond repair. And it's happening inside of a national seashore whose mandate is to restore the land back to its natural condition and protect wildlife, protect the water, protect the land. And they are finding every excuse possible not to do so. All that stuff that you saw there that looks like a wasteland would be green year round. Native perennial plants that are drought resistant to these fire conditions we have in California, homes to many different species, many of which are on endangered species lists, listed on the Point Reyes National Seashore website. We're talking about destroying habitat for animals that the website pretends to care about for the sake of the very industry responsible for the disappearance of those animals.
Wow. And I want to just stop right now and say, everyone, please share out this video. We need to get the word out about this. If people know what's going on, whether you're an animal rights person, you're a conservationist, you care about this planet, this is insane. This is crazy. This is in a national park, and we have to do something about it. What can we do about it? What can the average person, what can I do as an individual at home with my computer and all this stuff do to help with this? What are some of the things people can do?
I would say the first thing is to spread the word. So just what you suggested, Lindsay, share that video. Even if people just watch 10 or 20 minutes of it, they can't handle the whole thing. But I assume we're speaking to an animal rights concerned audience here. So you certainly do care. And this is a national park. So it's not just a San Francisco Bay Area issue or a regional issue or a California issue. It's national. And if we don't challenge it here, this idea of cattle ranching is fine or regenerative and such, we have no chance. We have no chance. We got to get it out of this park because it doesn't belong. It never was supposed to be there. And share the information about it. And then on Skyler's website, shameofpointreyes.org, my website, treespiritproject.com/elk, but you'll find it. There are a couple other organizations involved in this who were ahead of me. forelk.org, easy to remember. And then also IDA USA, in Defense of Animals, USA.org has a page devoted to this too. They've been involved in this issue in a very helpful way. Those are just 4 organizations involved currently. All of them have web pages about the elk, about Point Reyes, and things you can do, phone calls you can make, letters you can write. But one of the large things, back to task, is just sharing what other people know. The more outrage there is about this, that's how we got a meeting with a congressman, because a few hundred people are now really activated. A few more thousand know about it. We need to treble that number, multiply about 10-fold, so 100,000 people are aware of the issue.
Right, and we
Jane,
can do that by
some...
sharing, by doing watch parties, etc. Things like that, for sure. And I put up the address if someone wants to donate to help support the movie. This is the web address you can go to right here. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Skyler.
Well, I want to throw something out to your viewers, whether they are, animal activists or rancher sympathizers. You're going to run into some typical excuses, and these range, crazy things. But I suggest asking back, what is the limit? Exactly what point do you stop apologizing for what's happening out there? Because they say, well, it's not a factory farm, or hey, you got to support farmers, et cetera, et cetera. To what extent, is the fact that you have to compare what's happening in Point Reyes to a factory farm in order to see something worse supposed to make us feel better? All of Marin County is covered in these dairies, beef operations, other types of ranching. California is covered in it. The United States is covered in it. This idea that we have to be doing it in that little peninsula, one of the only things that we preserved for wildlife, which was the intent, the whole inspiration behind creating that national seashore. And now we supposedly as human beings can't even spare that because of the importance of an industry that's doomed to die anyway.
That's right. Let's show the desolation that it causes. Oh, sorry, guys. I had a little technical problem there for a second. Oh, my God. When I
Can I tell people what they just saw?
Yeah, please talk about that.
So that's getting close to the elk reserve. And the very first shot is if you're at the road and you're peering out over what has become of the land that is extracted from over and over and over again for the sake of one of the most unsustainable industries that you could imagine. Then you move closer and you start to see that fence come into view. That is the elk fence that keeps the elk on the other side. Then there was a shot of the ocean and some green plants. That's peering out through the fence to what could be, a promise of life and beauty that the seashore could be. You pull back from the fence and turn back to the ranches and you're right back to wasteland. I don't care if they aren't, by the way, even pursuing best practices or model behavior for ranches out there. But even if they were, no form of agriculture works hand in hand with wildlife survival. Did that look like habitat for anything to live other than a monocultured industry?
Oh my God, it was horrifying to look at that. And you're saying there are ranches and ranches and ranches of this all over?
Oh yeah, I have other videos about it. I've just started trying to wake people up that Marin County, even though, you know, if you're a city slicker and you venture up into through Sonoma and Napa, and you're like, oh, you know, it's nice not to see sky rises. You're also not looking at wildlife habitat. You're looking at bare, degraded hills. And in the areas that they aren't ranching, you get some nice patches of trees, thank goodness. The rest of it isn't supposed to look the way that it looks. We're accustomed to seeing it, but that is not what California flora looks like. And you don't see wildlife. Start counting how much wildlife you see as you drive through there. You'll see cows. That's it.
And talking about the cows, we kind of swept over that clip a little bit, looking at the dairy, looking at it from the side of the devastation to the land, but those poor animals, that constant buzzing, that was the thing, that loud, awful sound constantly. Most of those, some of the people that are watching are saying those are babies, they're baby calves. It's horrifying. And then for that dairy to be named Dairy of the Year, what sort of disconnect is going on? It's just incredible.
A mind-boggling, soul-crushing, heart-breaking disconnect. And a year and a half ago, I didn't know about this issue. I drove through that park. I've lived in Marin for 20 years, 22 years, and I didn't know what those white plastic boxes out there were. Yeah. So perhaps, again, people watching the show do, but most of America has no idea what those are, or that those animals are taken, those cows, those baby cows, as you correctly call them, the emotional word, which is just as accurate, perhaps more accurate, taken from their mothers a day or two after birth and put there to live out the rest of their miserable lives in pretty much isolation. There's other animals nearby, but no touching, not with the mother. And they do that because, well, you guys know the dairy thing, of course, but I didn't know that. I would drive right by it like most Americans did. So I consider myself uniquely qualified to talk to it, not in castigating anybody for not knowing, but in sharing the ugly truth and how powerful conditioning is, where you can see this stuff without actually seeing it.
Well, we were talking about that. I think Jane was talking about that yesterday, about dairy farmers and how some of them take such great care of their calves and cows and call them their babies and everything. And then that wall comes down when the truck comes to pick them up. And this one was telling a story of how he had to, the cow's butt was bloodied. That cow knew, and he actually used a cattle prod. This is a cow that lived with him for a long time producing milk. And he just kind of, the wall, well, I had to do it. This is what we do. And I mean, it was just incredible. And I can't believe that. I mean, I know this happens, but every time it's just mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. Jack, I want to talk a little bit about your organization, and I do want to bring people over to your website for a moment. We'll come back to this, of course, because it's all tied together. But I did want to show your site here for a moment, this TreeSp project. And this is the same where they can donate, I think, as well to this project. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm an environmental advocate, and I came in through trees and forests, which have been my lifelong love, long before I became aware of cows as an environmental issue. And it was, in fact, seeing the documentary I assume your viewers are aware of called Cowspiracy in 2014, now 6 years ago, my God, where I had not made the connection. I didn't know, as that movie very beautifully illustrates, the connection between the number one reason we cut down the essential world's trees and forests, and that's to raise cattle for human consumption worldwide. And who knew that I'd be working, whatever it is, 6 years later now, on this local backyard issue, which ties in. That's why I'm involved with it. I saw Skyler's film, and it made me go, oh my God, there's a deforestation and cattle climate change issue in my backyard, 10 miles from where I'm sitting. So I've gotten involved in this movement. And as you say, it's all connected, Lindsay, between deforestation and degradation of land or soil, greenhouse gas, methane pollution from cows, and all of it is unnecessary. We don't need to be eating them, certainly not in the massive amounts that we do, in order to survive and thrive. It's just a habit, and it's literally suicidal for the human species to continue this.
In so many ways, health-wise, environmentally, it's incredibly cruel. It's the cause of wet markets are causing zoonotic diseases. I mean, you could go on and on and on. It's such a circle where everything is, of course, we all know that, but people don't realize, they think in terms of isolated incidents.
So
it's all connected.
Ideas like yours, what you just encapsulated there, ideas are the ultimate virus and can spread faster, in this case for positive effect, than the coronavirus.
Yes.
So we can reach a tipping point and a critical mass, I'm optimistic, soon, because we had better reach it soon. So that's why I say share and spread the word and talk with friends about it, just like we're sharing about voting in this election being so important. It certainly is. But this issue transcends all of it. We won't have a political system or just zoonotic diseases to worry about if the climate crisis hits with the impact it's going to hit if we don't act yesterday, let alone now.
Yeah, I think they say we have till 2006 or the latest 2010, all wildlife will be wiped off the planet at that point, and then man and everything else is pretty much done.
2006, 2010 are behind us now. Which do you mean?
Within 10 years, rather. 2006 or at least within 10 years.
And what I've read is, my understanding is, if let's say a different administration moves in and believes in science, we believe in science, like gravity. It's not just a good idea, it's the law. Mm-hmm. I believe in gravity. I believe in climate science, and we act fast. It's still too late to mitigate some of the effects of this, the major effects of it. We're still screwed, but at least we'll have 20, 30, 40 years to work with it, versus if we just leap off the cliff right now, it's bad. I don't want to go there. It's too depressing.
Are there any petitions people can sign? Would it help for them to write to their congressman or to the representative that you spoke to? Would that be helpful, or is there any other action they can take? Sharing, of course, is super important, getting the word out there, but what else can people do?
Well, so the simplest thing, on each of our 4 websites, shameofpointreyes.org, mytreespiritproject.com, forelk.org, and idausa.org, there are pages for this issue with actions to do on each of them. Go to the one of your choice, whichever one you can remember or like. Donate the ones you believe in and like and support, there are actions there to do. If I tell you an action, no one's going to remember it. It's sort of look at it on a piece of paper. That's where I found people are most effective.
Yeah, let's look at yours and just show people where it is. So I'm on the site. Can you see me? Let me just share for a moment. And
are you talking to me or Skyler?
To you, Jack, because I'm going to go on your site here if I can. So can you guys see me on your site? No.
I can see you. I can't see the site yet, but it's going to be treespiritproject.com/elk.
Let me see if I can share that tab.
We are each small organizations working in concert with each other. So if you go to the news at the top of the page,
okay,
and then you see Point Reyes Elk right there, the first one down, click on that. And in my case now, there's lots you can't show that, hide that, scroll down quickly.
Well, it's not, I didn't put it on, you did.
So
I'm going to show blow-ups of this, but yeah, just talk your way through this if you would.
Well, this is a rally right there. Huffman, don't shoot, don't pollute. That's a rally we're doing this Friday for viewers in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, in San Rafael, which is about 6, 7, 10 miles north of Golden Gate Bridge, the big little city in Marin County. We're doing a demonstration, and we'll have a few hundred people out there talking about these issues, showing some of Skyler's work and other videos. And building community really is what we're doing. So you can actually do that in COVID-safe distance and all that. Anyway, if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, there's a couple of markers, but it's just fastest right now since I'm not moving your mouse there. That's a video of another demonstration we did at the dairy. We had 288 people, drove 10 miles from where I live. 20 miles.
A couple of seconds of it. We can watch a couple seconds here.
I'm here at the live elk, not livestock rally, Point Reyes National Seashore in California. This is dozens and dozens of people who are turning out to say no to ranching, yes to protecting elk on our public wild lands.
So this is all the people that came out to the last one. It was a wonderful success and reminded us that we have power. And I think it's why.
Dairy. These are the Thule elk. There are not many left of them in the world, and the ranchers here keep on expanding into their territory, so that they can make cheese and burgers at cut prices. And the taxpayers are all funding this.
That's the owner of the dairy.
Of Yoko's Creamery, a company that's reinventing the dairy industry.
Yoko Chinner of Yoko's Creamery.
Mr. McClure and the ranchers know here that we are not the enemy of dairy. We are the solution.
We have 15 dead elk who have been killed in this park already. They're dying of thirst just up the road. And now the National Park Service is planning to shoot and kill more.
Yes, and the one thing I did want to talk about when we get off here are the two other herds, because we didn't really emphasize this. But you want to talk through the rest of this?
Well, it goes on forever. It goes on for too long. I have a WordPress website which lets me write a lot, which I like to do. But if you scroll to the very bottom of the page, if you go to the far right, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. There's just tons of information for people who want it. I'm a writer and a copywriter, so I give content. Okay, slow down now and go up a little bit. Keep going, keep going. Keep going.
Keep going?
Yeah, I mean, there's too much to take in. So that's donation, but keep going above that. And then there's the actions you asked about. Here we go. So keep going. You see number 1. There's number 3. Go up to number 1. Keep going. There you are. So you can contact these 3 officials. Tell the National Park Service to protect elk, not cows. Contact the 3 officials. Scroll down a little bit now. There's the California Coastal Commission, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom.
Yay, I'll be on this tonight.
There's the regional director of the Park Service you can contact. So, I mean, all of this takes, if you put your attention to it, you could probably write emails or do a quick call and take 5 or 10 minutes for the whole lot of it. And they have been getting the calls, and it does make a difference. I think it's one reason a congressman agreed to speak to us activists at this point, where we only number a few hundred, which shows the power of our voices. If a few thousand start speaking up, we can really force this issue to the fore. More politicians to call. Then those are our websites. Skyler's website, Shame of Point Reyes, is in there. Restore Point Reyes, Seashore.org. Restore Elk at the top there.
Oops, got to fix that one. All right. Yeah, I think that link, you might want to go in and fix that. It didn't work, but we'll go over to that one for a second too, to Skyler's for a moment. Is there anything else you want us to look at here real quick?
That's good for the moment. I'm always wondering how much information people can process when it's not done in a.
Well, they know to go. They're going to see this and know that when they go over to treespiritproject.com/elk, they're going to get all of this information.
Correct.
This is all there for them. And this is amazing. I mean, wow. You did a lot of writing on this, Jack.
Yeah, my webmaster is like, Jack, you got to cut it down. It's like, no, I want to believe that people still can read. I'm an optimistic person.
There are a lot of readers still. There are a lot of readers. I'm putting in, don't mind my typing. Shame, it takes me a second. Shame of.
And I want to.
We don't put these in the, we don't put them in the title because it brings down the views, but we put all the links you mentioned, Shame of Point Reyes.org, treespiritproject.com, forelk.org, I imagine, and IDA.USA will all be in the IDAUSA.org. .org. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm. It's the USA division of IDA.
They'll be in the here we go. They'll be in the where they can click the link, so they don't have to worry if I say it incorrectly. There we go. So this is Shame of Point Reyes, the website where you can see where you can donate and you can watch this clip.
See, there's a
quick look at this clip.
No, that's an hour long, and it's scientists explaining soil regeneration. I mean, people should watch it on their own, but don't show it during your show. They'll go to sleep. But if you scroll, well, if you scroll up to the top and you see the main tabs, and as you get over here, there's quite a few drop downs, and I've spent the last 3 years writing things and creating videos that help people understand the lies that they're going to hear, the same lies that I heard when I started. The film, you can watch the film on that page, of course. And the one you're on right now, the top link, Adequate Water, I'm going to start rolling out a mini series that is me and a local West Marin resident going out there and showing ourselves that the Park Service lied to the public on the radio with visual evidence. And I'm going to roll out an episode, 2 episodes per week, starting tomorrow. And these are the things that help break down all of the pre-written canned responses that the Park Service will send out to people. And it's just not true. And, I just spoke to a Park Service representative the other day, and whenever I challenged with science or with facts, she would go the direction of, well, you have to remember how important this land means to the people, the farmers. And it said they could be the best people on the planet, and that doesn't change the science or the fact, or that this belongs to me. This belongs to the people. Remember, this is not their land. This is not the rancher's land that we are encroaching on. We aren't being jerks by going out there and saying, hey, stop destroying the national park. It's our national park. And our tax dollars, not only have they taken the park from us, our tax dollars are funding their private business.
Skyler, would you tell them, because we didn't cover that this call, now listening to you, Skyler, would you say about that the land has been purchased to make the park?
So, and this gets, they've spent the last 50 years convoluting this fact and sending out propaganda, but it's as clear as can be in the enabling legislation that this land was purchased for the sake of preserving and restoring to the maximum possible effort of restoring it. And then what happened, and this is also on the Park Service website, is the administrative history, which walks you through why the ranches ended up getting included. It boils down to the fact that the government couldn't purchase this land outright and needed to find stopgaps in order to make the money arrive a little bit later on and make the price a little bit lower. So they did a lease back. Jack touched on the leases earlier. But when, and this is when it gets really scary, because a lot of people are going to say, how dare you pick on these poor, little small farmers? The money that was received, and this can be tracked, instead of them preparing to leave the seashore, they bought more ranch land within Marin County and then started forming organizations, lobby groups, and buying politicians, and have only grown stronger and stronger and stronger. Some of these same ranchers became board members of Malt, which is now in the news for their illegal actions.
Name any organizations, if you don't mind, because we can't substantiate that. So please don't name any. Thank you. Sorry about that. You can't. Please. We have to bleep it. We have to take it off. So if you keep talking about it.
Sure.
But
there's basically a mafia of families that now own Marin County. And it ties right back to the original purchase with our tax dollars of this land that they never left. So let that sink in for a little while. It sounds like Hollywood. It
sounds like Hollywood, but it's unfortunately not the first time I've heard something like that. But yeah, that's very unfortunate.
So to recap, they were paid to leave and haven't. They've lobbied hard to stay. They're the #1 source of soil degradation, water pollution, ocean pollution, and of course greenhouse gas in the form of methane. More than a million annual cars and RVs that drive through there. So they're the major source of pollution. They're not little in that they own land outside the park, as Skyler just explained.
Mm-hmm.
The historic argument you'll also hear, well, it's cultural value and historic. Well, there actually is a great cultural and historic ranch in the park, right at the inside one of the elk reserves, and it's no longer a working dairy. You can go there and look at the historic wooden structures, not the giant functional metal structures that hold today's dairies, which are modern operations. So
Right.
there's so much, as Skyler is saying bitterly and accurately, so much, what should we say, BS? Would that be an appropriate metaphor? Piled on this thing for so long, and we get onto Nextdoor and we make comments, and people say, well, no, there's historic value, and these poor little farmers. There's, I think Miyoko Shinner was saying at the last demo, there are 60 jobs of workers, 60 jobs, all of which could do better and be paid more outside the park without abusing animals. So the economic argument is complete fallacy, but these myths are perpetuated, and now it's just PR to have those businesses stay.
Wow. And I did want to talk about the one more part of this that we really didn't emphasize enough, I don't think. And that is, that's the one herd that's being dying of thirst, that's being deprived of water. And well, nothing's being done to stop them from being dying of thirst. But there's 2 other herds that now are going to be shot. Look, what is this about here? What can you talk about?
So this is an advertising poster. So it's a little sloppy. There are elk dying of drought in the park. That's true. And now the proposal in the new management plan, just out and making news, is, well, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to bring in more animals of different variety, expand businesses, and yeah, we need to manage the herds. The one behind the fence right now is being managed just for the fact that they're not letting them get outside the fencing so they can get water. So they're dying of thirst. But now they want to manage there are 2 more herds, one at Drake's Beach, it's another area in the park, and one at Limantour area, which is across a body of water that the elk expanded naturally. They just swam across. Then the scientists didn't know they would do that. And now there's 2 separate herds, about 130, 40, 50 animals per each. And the one on Drake's Beach is being complained about by the ranchers nearby there. How dare these wild animals come onto our land and eat some of our grass and drink some of our cows' water. Gosh. So we're lobbying the Park Service, who is doing their faithful bidding, and we'll shoot some every year to not kill them. They're going to manage the herd. They're going to cull the herd. And I love talking about these words because they are Orwellian euphemisms for a brutal industry killing wildlife inside a national park.
Yeah. Now we have one more talking about calves and moms. Let's look at this calf. And I was reading, well, we lost Jack for a second. I'm sure he'll pop back in here. I was reading that people say they go to the park to see the wildlife. People come to Point Reyes to see, as tourists, come to see the wildlife, and they have no idea. And they go to the park, and if I came in there as John Q. citizen, I would see the rangers, and I would think how wonderful this all is, what's going on here. But would I not see all these farms, and would I not smell? I mean, is it not getting to the point where it's overtaking the area? Or, Skyler?
It smells terrible. You won't believe it. You can't believe where you are. And you have to, that's the irony of the supposed benefit of these ranches. Any tourist that comes out there has to drive past miles of destruction to get to a couple of places that are actually desirable, which was, what the intention of the park was in the first place.
How long will it take?
Nobody. Tell me a reason that you would feel compelled to pull your car over and try to climb through some barbed wire and then walk through a pasture of dirt and poop.
No.
But that's the benefit that's being provided by the ranchers for your sake.
Cultural value. Cultural and historic value.
No, this is absurd, and I think it just the story just needs to get out to the public.
Exactly. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you. It does have one cultural value. I'm sorry, it has one cultural value. It shows you what the Dust Bowl looked like. You get to see that historically here, modern day.
Very serious. It's terrible, really horrible. Well, I just hope that we can make people take some notice here. This is hopefully, please viewers, please share this out. Those of you that are watching, I have some people making comments, and we will be putting this out as well. I'll talk to you guys when we go off the air a little about a couple other ways we might be able to put it out. So to help put the word out. And definitely, folks, go to the website and do the actionable items there that we saw on Jack's website, the treespiritproject.com. I believe that's where all those 1, 2, 3 things to do are, and I'm going to go through them and do them. And they're really fast. They're really fast to do. Anything else you guys want to add? We only have 10 minutes left, believe it or not. So I want to hand it over to each of you. Did we show both the posters though real fast? I don't want to leave out your, oh, this one. This poster is, gotta show this one.
Let that sink in, folks. Point Reyes National Seashore.
Yeah.
We used to say, and it is indeed America's crappiest national park. The water is polluted with E. coli bacteria from the feces of those cows. Put the waterways in Point Reyes National Seashore, a national park, on the top 10 most polluted waterways in all of America.
Now this is recorded that way?
Yeah. This is an article, Center for Biological Diversity, the CBD as it's known, Center for Biological Diversity, did a study, actually. They gathered the data, I say, and they put out a press release. It's on my website also. I think Skyler might have turned me on to it. They have a newsletter called The Revelator, which Skyler, did you mention that in your film, Skyler?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
So yeah, it's fact. And it's just a matter of just what you said, Lindsay. It's just getting the information out there.
Go watch the film, everyone. shameofpointreyes.org. It's free. Just go watch it.
I would say go to, if you're interested in a documentary on YouTube, instead of watching something on Netflix tonight that's, just an escape, this is an amazing film. It's got a lot of heart. It's got the information. It's not as difficult to see as some other animal rights pictures, which are worth seeing. And it'll really fill you in. And just once you see 90 minutes of his movie, that's it. It's sort of like you can cut through all the BS you're going to hear from the other side of this.
Yeah, I like the way Skyler uses the environmental shots of the environment and the way he points to different things out for us to look at. And for what I saw so far, I've only seen the teaser, to be fair, but it wasn't very graphic, but it was, you felt for that little isolated baby calf. And again, that buzzing around the baby, and it kept going like this. Constantly all day long. That's torture. That's slow torture. And it's just so unnecessary. And it's doing so much bad things that we just have to take all the steps we can. So folks, please, if you would, go to the page, go to these links will be here for you. Click the links, go do the actionable items, share this out, do watch party, everything you can. Okay, going to give each of you the last few minutes here. We have 7 minutes to split between the two of you. So who wants to go first? What would you like people to know before we end?
I'll jump on something both of you said earlier. You guys talked about how everything is connected. And, Jack's graphic shows poop going into the water. My film shows the poop being spread over the land. And you'll hear people talk about carbon farming and other silly things. You can put any label you want to on it. If you go out to Point Reyes, all you see is land that is degraded and then forced to grow back invasive plants through the use of adding even more poop onto it. It's not a system that works for nature. It's not a system that works, period. And all that poop has to go somewhere, whether it's dry or liquefied, and it makes it down into the ocean. I was working on another shark film when this stopped me in my tracks. And I go, as the park, as the legislation intended this to be, a place of inspiration and recreation. And I had one of the most glorious mornings of my life out at Chimney Rock, one of the most incredible experiences ever, followed a short time later by one of the worst things I've experienced, only a mile down the road. And then I found out that the good things were going to be killed to make more room for the bad thing that I just experienced. That's the insanity of what's happening in our national seashore.
Wow, that's incredible. Jack.
I got involved in this issue.
Just depressing.
Well, it is depressing. And of course, the climate crisis is depressing. And what do you do about deforestation? What do you do about cattle ranching? Well, that's why I got involved in this little issue in Little Point Reyes National Seashore, just 71,000 acres. Because it's a national park, and because they're literally now letting the wild animals die intentionally behind fencing and proposing to shoot more of the ones that aren't behind fences, it just touches my heart and gives me hope. Although that's depressing news, it's a small enough issue and a local enough issue which augurs into the national, international issues of the climate crisis, which comes in part from cows destroying the land and emitting all the methane they do. It's one that's winnable. We just got a congressman to speak to us, and we're only a few hundred strong. Imagine what we can do with thousands of people involved in this. If you care about ranching and cattle and climate crisis, in this little national park is a place for us to make our stand and make our issue for the larger issue at the same time. Both, the expression is think globally, act locally. This is exactly a place to do that. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for your caring. Thank you, Skyler, for making an amazing film which touched my heart. You're a macho dive cinematographer with an amazing heart. And thank you, Lindsay, for caring and giving us this platform to share.
Oh, my pleasure. We have a question here. I've got treespiritproject.com/elk, idausa.org. What are the other two links? Shame of Point Reyes.org. Again, they're going to be up momentarily. As soon as we go off, I'll put up the rest of the links.
And the last one is forelk.org.
For elk.
Amazing activist Diana Oppenheim, who also framed it with, did you know they're shooting elk in the park? And like, what? And it's a great way to bring people into the issue as like a keystone species of everything that's wrong with animal agriculture, as it's called, which I call animal factories, inside a national park.
Yeah. Yes. And I want to thank you both for being on. And I want to say that we would love to have you on again as this keeps unfolding. Keep us posted, and we'll try to help you get this story out. And please, everyone, go and do those actionable items for us. Go ahead.
And people in the Bay Area, we have a rally this Friday in San Rafael, 10 miles north of the Golden Gate Bridge. If you live in San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, Marin County, please come and join us, and you'll see much more of this in an even more fun way, although this is an amazing tool with Zoom, or excuse me, social media.
Yeah, it's great. And people are saying, bring them back. So more segments. So that's amazing. Okay, folks, thanks for watching. We'll be back next time. Thanks for tuning in. I'll say goodnight for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.